So I'm David Singleton. I'll be your moderator today. I'll be taking any questions. If you have questions, there is a question box. Ask your question there. If it's something that needs an immediate answer, sound is down, or didn't understand, I'll interrupt KB to answer the question. But in general, I will schedule all the questions to the end of the seminar. At that time, I'll give them to KB, and he'll come back with answers as we go along. So I'm sure, as you just said, it's the 102nd Areopa webinar, so it's really growing here, growing fast. KB, this is what, your third presentation, is it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I always had it on my birthday, right? Now we need to shift it to March, so little later.
Okay, so few housekeeping rules. As I said, your mic is muted. There's no point talking too many people for that. We have a lot of people registered today, and I know they'll be joining in the next few minutes because everyone's normally a bit late. Questions I'll answer, and I'll process those questions as we're going along. Now, go straight to our YouTube channel if you want to find out any of the historic ones. Everything is recorded, everything is in detail. You'll be able to find all the old ones. There's a ton of information here. YouTube.com, just search for Areopa webinars. If you want to get, you can take this URL, you can get onto the mailing list, and that will send you invites for what's happening. If you go to the easiest way to go to Areopa Academy, that website has been really simplified. It just clicks straight to the real stuff. And we've got the next seminars coming on. We're pretty heavy now. We're doing it the normal 2 a month. We have Soren from Microsoft. We have Benito, Patrick, Ivan. These are the next schedules. You can find more details as we go forward. But even though we are full, we still have a lot of slots going forward. It might be a while, but keep in mind, if you've never done a presentation before, this is a fabulous platform to get started on. It's a very simple, easy thing to do. You don't have a huge audience sitting in front of you. If you want to practice something to do with BC, you want to get out there and you want to put some practice in, this is the place to start. And the same token, you can see some of these names. Half of these names are people that have been doing this for 20 years, and half of the people, this is their first session. So we cover everything. Of course, the most important thing is to thank our sponsor, 4Nav. They're the ones that make this happen. And I think, you know, with all the changes going on in reporting in Navision, in BC, sorry, I think they changed the name recently. 4Nav is still a great way to get your reports out there. So with no further ado, let's get going. I'm going to hand over to KB and let him take over. I'll just make you presenter.
Yes, please. You should be able to see my presentation right now. Can you just confirm it?
Yes, don't be a messy AL developer is now on my screen. All yours.
Yes, great. In fact, to be honest, when I start preparing for this webinar, that's not only for AL developers, in general for developers. Don't be a massive developer. That also could be a nice title. David, thank you for introduction. I have just small slides about myself. Some of you probably already know me. I'm quite a lot of talking also on the Areopa webinars, first time, but still, you said, David, there are people which are new and some which are doing it for 20 years. I hope that I'm new comparing to you. So welcome everyone. You can also find me on my blog, mynavblog.com. And I also want to say one thing about myself. I'm working for the ESV, but I also have some customer as a VAR. So we'll try to also talking about this topic from both perspectives, right? So sometimes I will say that it's more relevant for the ESVs, but also sometimes it's something which VARs also should do. So keep in mind that I have both perspectives when I was preparing for that. this session, I spoke with Luke, who invited me here, and I'm really grateful for that. Came from one of the sessions which I was doing about fixing my code. So in that session, I was preparing some examples, and audience was saying what is wrong with that code. Here, of course, you cannot say what is wrong, so we don't have that interaction. So I little changed that session. I want to focus on the first part, little theory, and those who knows me, you know that I love talking. But the second one is examples. So I would like also to present some examples, what you can do, what you can avoid to not be a messy developer, right? But also what means the developer, be messy developer, that's the part one. So I asked my friend, what means to be a messy developer? And this is what I get. Lack of proper formatting and indentation, no comments or documentation, spaghetti code, poor naming convention, and no code reusability or optimization. I generally agree, right? And then my friend, in fact, that was ChatGTP, which asked me this question. What do you say you would you have worked with, or maybe have been a messy programmer before? And you know, I thought that it's nice moment to like think about it. So, have I worked with the messy programmers? Yes, I did. And have I ever been a messy programmer? Of course, I've been, for sure. But that's also why I want to say, being a messy developer, there are reasons for that, right? So that's also good to know why sometimes we are messy. So probably most of you know that triangle. So time, cost, and quality, especially in the project. So if we will cut the costs, we cut quality and time, right? So if we want to have a better quality, we need to have more time. And that's something which we probably lack on the projects a lot, right? I guess many of you were doing some very short fixes which stayed with the customers for years in the database. But that's not only that, right? So it's not only about time, and we should always think about the quality, even if we have less time for something. But there is more, like for example, lack of knowledge and experience. I mentioned I have few years of the experience, but when I was young and I also didn't have so much knowledge, probably now if I will look on the code which I did 10 years ago, I would say it was messy, right? So that's also something which nice to know that we improve over years. Technical depth in the project, that's also which sometimes give us that we need to follow what already had. And there is also which Microsoft is adding a new stuff to the language, right? And the old code doesn't look as pretty or as should be when we develop, right? The second is the next one is organization standards. Not always all organizations follow all the rules, which might help to be less messy. So that's also good to keep it in mind. Also, working alone. From time to time when we work alone, probably some of you which are freelancers or work on the project alone think, oh, why we need a code review, or why we need to do something, or maybe we will just fix this very quickly, no one will notice. We are only one who is managing that code, which can also be a reason why we can do some shortcuts. And the last one, which I want to put here, is also poor analysis from the consultants. Maybe not only consultants, but I just wanted to highlight it. So if we don't have the all overview, how something should work, what should be done, that also can bring us to write a messy code in such case. And the last one is not knowing the tools. Not every developers know that there are tools which can be used, which can help you to prevent some code which doesn't need to be in the database, or just not do it, or put it in the right way. So that's like some of the reasons. Probably you can find more of them, but every time we need to just think about it, that may be a reason that someone wrote the code. And I really would like to also mention one thing, which I'm always saying, and I know how people are looking on someone else's code, is that we never should judge how someone wrote the code, only because we don't know all those things which I mentioned previously, right? So we don't know if that was the pressure of time, pressure of project, lack of the experience, and so on. Of course, it doesn't mean that we should not look on the code and say that that's wrongly wrote, or it could be better. But we never know why someone wrote like this, so please never judge the person who wrote that code. Okay, but also you may say, yeah, I'm the only one person there, so why I should care about clean code, code which can be readable by everyone else, and so on. I also want to touch like what's happening if you're writing code which later someone will need to use. So first of all, looking from the customer perspective, they may spend more time during upgrades. If you want to write a code in a way from the beginning how it shouldn't be wrote, probably at some moment Microsoft will change it or make it as an error, and then upgrades will take more time. I will show you examples later, which I've seen on the customer database. From the company perspective, if we will spend more time, it means that we will spend money. So we can lose that money, we can lose that time. But also, especially that if we are ESV and we publish code on app source, everyone can read it, we also can lose the reputation. No one will want to work with the partner who write a code which is not very well structured and is hard to read. We also will lose time because probably something we will need to fix, and maybe we will fix it or our colleagues will need to fix it. So ask yourself, do you would like to fix a code which someone wrote in your team? That's why we can also lose the credibility among colleagues. Very hard words, sorry. As you can see, I'm not, sometimes I have problems with the hard words to pronounce them. But also, if the other partner will take over the code, they will know from who they took it. So we talk again about the reputation, but they will also spend time on fixing that code when they will take over your customer, maybe if customer will want to work with someone else. So that's the all reasons which can happen when we writing a messy code, we as a developers at the end. So what are the tools which can help being less messy? And there are some tools which are for the whole organization, but there is also some tools which can help you directly. One of that tools for the whole organization can be a code review. I will just touch that in a moment. The second one is using VS Code tools. There are some tools, and I will just show you which one I'm using, which can help you write a better code directly in Visual Studio Code. So that's something which we can use as a developer directly. The other one, which is rather for the organization, but also can be for the one developer, is using custom rule sets. So that's something which we can use. And I will show you how I was working on a rule set which we are using in the organization, and also tell you if that was good approach or not. And the last one is a code refinement. That's also something which we can do to improve our code during the lifetime of that solution. Okay, so if we are talking about code review, for me, that's something which I could not imagine to not have, and I'm really surprised that not everyone yet is using a code review. I know that Tina had a really nice presentation also about it, so if you can find it, please also watch it. But what I think is, like, even if we are a solo developer, we always should use a code review, even if this is only us who is looking on the code. To be honest, I found a lot of small issues when I just wrote the code, push it not to main, but do the code to the separate branch, and then look what I will merge. Then it also tells me that, oh, why I did something like that. So not even when you're working in the team, but also when you are working alone, it can help you prevent some things and rethink some development which has been done. The other thing which I would like to say is, don't cut this code review under pressure of time, right? So even if there is something which needs to be done urgently, always someone should look on that code, because later you will find out that fixing something can take much more time. So I'm always encouraged, always do the code review, even if there is the time pressure. Then add as much automatic code review actions that can help you reviewing. For example, I'm in my team, we have a developer who is doing a lot of mistakes in spelling. So we added the spell checker to our code review, which just help us to find such mistakes. So that was one thing which, even if someone was reading the code review, not always could find that word that has been spelled wrongly. That's one thing. The second thing which I hate to leave in our code is all to-dos. Probably all of you know that developers love to leave the to-dos, but sometimes someone is forgetting about it when pushing the code later to the repository. So we also added the action, which is automatically checking if there is any to-do in that pull request. And then I can just, when I'm reviewing the code, I have less work with that. There is much more, which you can add some labeling. For example, something which I added is that automated tests need to be included. So anyone who is writing automated tests, I already have a label for that, that it will improve and help me with this code review, right? So there is much more things which you can do. The other thing which I'm thinking about when I think about the code review is always good to have 4 eyes principle policy. Means that not only one person should do the review, but in fact there should be at least 2 people which are doing that. And this is a great place to bring junior developers which can learn to see how something should be written, but also they might find the things which you will be surprised that they are finding. So that's also a good place for learning, not only doing the code review just to approve the code. Maybe another idea which I have is to also include the consultants, but probably they will not have so much time. Okay, so that was the code review. But there is another thing, so which little also touch during the code review. So custom rule set. I don't know how many of you is using that, but custom rule set is when you can put the code copes in a specific way. So for example, Microsoft says that it's a warning, but you say that this is an error in our organization. So this is what you can do. You cannot add your own rules to that, but you can change the justification of the existing ones. So first of all, it allows us to have one standard for all developers. If we are using the same rule set, every developers need to follow exactly the same rules. The second thing is, which I mentioned, is that you can build that automatically the pull request will be failing if all the rules are not matched. So that's one thing. And then there is also a good point to prepare that rule set together. So that all developers can decide, do we really need that rule, or do we really think that it should be an error and not only warning? So what we did in our organization, in our team, we make zero error policy, but we mark a lot of things as an errors, not only as a warnings. So let me just show you how I did it and how we at the end created our custom rule set. So I took all the rules which Microsoft is providing for app source code, COPE, and UE COPE. In fact, we don't need the fourth one, which is per tenant COPE, because the rules are exactly the same there. But for the vars, instead of app source COPE, you should use just per tenant COPE. I have all IDs from the website, from Learn, and the titles, and I just went one by one to see what is a severity. So let me just show you. So we have in total, let's just go down, 217 or 18 rules, and how much we changed is 114. So over the half of them, we changed the how we want to handle them in our software. So let's see, for example, what we made an error. For example, just small thing, to be honest, never seen it as an error, is use only a correct order for application area, right? But now I will not mess in the code. Don't use the identical names for local and global variables, right? It is just an error warning. We made it an error. So our builds will fail if something like that will happen. So this is how we handle our rule set, but each organization, in fact, should just think about what is the best for them, but it should be a decision which is for whole organization. The other thing which I also mentioned on that previous slides is code refinement. So as I mentioned, at some moment, even if we didn't do a mess code, our code can look a mess. For example, because Microsoft changed the policy from for example, for application area, that we don't need to put it on every field anymore in the pages. We only can put it on the table, right? So probably our code is looking still using the application area on all fields. The same can be with the tooltips, or it can be also with the with actions and so on. You know, the things which Microsoft were changing, right? So what I'm trying to introduce and also doing it every year, we want to refine our code and we plan it also. So for when we are doing the roadmap, we also have that our partners later can see that we still maintaining our code and we adding new stuff. also the things related to the performance, like adding the auto calc fields and so on, right? So that's something when we started we didn't have, so we need to add it, that our code will still have the good performance and also will be not so messy, I would say. The VARs also should plan something like that. So during the service mode and of our application, so we already developed something, someone is using it, but we know that during the upgrades we can have warnings and so on. So that also should be some time, and that should be somehow also tell to the users that we need such time also for code refinement, right? So that's how I see the code refinement, that we always keep updating and also keep on track what Microsoft is doing, keep up to the standards which Microsoft is adding. And unfortunately, that's something which cannot be skipped as well, because later you will have more problems with your extension as well, even if you didn't start doing it little messy. Okay, I put a lot of theory at this moment, but the one thing which I would like to ask you, don't implement all those rules right away. Even if I think they are really great, I believe that this is something which, first of all the rules should be agreed in the organization, because it doesn't make sense if all developers doesn't have the same approach. So even if we will, and later I will show you what kind of the things you can have in the code and as general rules, even if one developer will decide, let's do something like that, it's still, there is 250 developers which will work different way. So that's something which should be introduced to whole organization and make sure that all the developers is working the same. And something which I will say that you will not like it probably. This is also, if you are not just one person company and doing the development, it's also not a developers who should make that rule, right? So it's not like a solo developer should decide if something is an error or if we should hide it. It should be like a whole organization which says, we doing it this way, right? So of course, the manager is also a developer, so maybe he can decide. But what I'm saying is, let's say developers should never decide if we are doing a spaces in the names or not, or how we are doing the naming convention. That should be something which is general for the whole organization, right? Of course, it doesn't mean that developers should not give an idea, but it should be for all developers the same, because otherwise that will not work and it will be really hard to adapt for all the people in the organization. Hopefully that's, you understand my point. All right. Now the second part of the presentation, and probably I will not take whole of your hour, but I have some examples which I prepared, and also would like to show you how to mitigate those things. But there is a big warning there. Some of those examples you will see, and you may see it from the on the customer production database, right? And this is either from PTs or from app source app, and you already may maintain those apps. You even don't know that. So be aware that some of those things are really scary, but they are real in the production database. But I also want to say why I have that approach, that I want to show you that code. Sometimes it was from my project, sometimes in general from the apps, is because I think on some examples we can learn what common mistakes are during that development, right? So this is only to avoid such mistakes in the future. All right, so let's start from very simple one and very, let's say, basic, but I really see it from time to time in the databases, especially customer databases and PTEs, is wrong app.json, right? Yeah, I know we want to focus on the whole code and everything, but we are forgetting about the basics one. So please always remember, when you are creating a new project, start with the proper name, start with the publisher, good description, brief, and very important, make sure that you have a proper application, proper runtime, that we already have all of that properly set, but also resource exposure policy. First of all, for the app source apps, I think minimum should be allow debugging through, right? So we should allow our partners to debug, maybe not downloading the source code, the source. I get fully that. I also don't allow downloading the source code, but allowing debugging is a minimum, in my opinion, for the app source app. But for the PTEs, I believe all the things, so allow downloading source, should be true. And I put a small asterisk here because that's also not something which really developer can just decide by himself, by herself in the organization. Sometimes there are some rules in such company that says that partner or customer is owner of the code, right? So remember also about that changing this may not be a development decision, but political decision in the organization. So remember about that, but in general, as a developers, it would be nice to at least try to convince everyone that we should be able, as a PTE, download the source code. Okay, let me just go to another example of the bad code and what I think we should do. So on the top, you can see one thing is we always should develop in English. Probably not all of you can understand what is in the code unit, like linie sprzedaży, which is Polish, and also you have a Greek comment. So develop in English and put also a comments in English, right? I don't believe that it's very hard to develop in English because we do everything in English. Learning and all our procedures, all kind of that stuff is in English. So why change that for example, for naming of the parameters or naming of the variables and also the comments. You never know who will be maintaining your code, and it might be totally different people which would maintain the code from totally different countries or so. So please do that. Please use the translation file for the different language. That's also something which you can, which should be like a standard. I know that it's not so easy to work with the translation files, but it's much easier to maintain the code if we have everything in English. The next thing, as you may see on the lower example, is don't use the text in errors and in the messages or anywhere else. Just use the labels instead of texts. And that has many things. First of all, the translation is not taken in place. So you cannot see that in translation file, therefore you cannot translate it. Therefore, any user will see it in English in this case on the screen. And trust me, even in Poland, I have a customer, half of the team is using English as a basic of Business Central and half of them using Polish. So for user, it's quite annoying if they see the message in the wrong language. But even if that doesn't convince you, there is another reason. if you will put errors like this, you cannot track it in the telemetry. So simple like that, you're already losing a lot of information in telemetry. It will say that system cannot show the message because of the GDPR rules and so on. So remember to not do it. And there is very easy way using one of the extensions to fix that. So let me just go back to Visual Studio Code, and I will just mark it, and you can see that I can extract it to label. That's simply as that, right? And I will tell you how I'm always writing. I really start working like this. So whenever I work it, that's why I said sometimes I am a C developer. Hello to all at webinar. And I will start doing the messages like this, but later I just make it and extract it to label, because it's just easier how I would work. But as you can see, I can just simply change it to label without any issues. And the only thing which I need to do, just put a new label text. And here my friend Copilot is helping me, so I can webinar welcome label. But unfortunately for BC, that will be not the best, because it would like to have a suffix. So I will just change it, and I will just write, for example, text, right? But as you can see, very simple. I didn't, with just 2 clicks, I make the code which is not a messy code. Okay, the other thing which I see a lot, really a lot, I just choose 2 examples which really for me were annoying, is don't hardcode the values. That was my first thing which I learned when I was a junior developer. Our boss was like, never ever hardcode the values. And after 15 years almost, I still remember that. And especially that is very simple to not do it in a lot of cases. So example from below here and here is that you always can create a setup field in a setup that will allow users to set that value. Even if it will be once or something, then you can just very, very simply avoid such thing. And moreover, I've seen a situation that someone hard-coded the value and do find first, as in this case, without if. So you just block all the customers in the organization because there is no box. And what if there will be another person who will come in 2 years from now and will start using something different than the box, because they will say, yeah, you know, box is not the good code for it. Let's change it. They can do it in BC, but in code you still will have box, so it will totally stop working, and then someone will need to have a developer who will fix that code for them. So that's why I'm saying it's better always to not hardcode the values, especially that is just one table extension and page extension in the worst case, and one setup which you will do for the customer, and you can avoid that box in just no time almost. The same is below. If someone will change project to project in a different language or anything else, also will have you will have an error. Maybe less with this get 15, but that also should not be hard-coded, because you can just put database GL accounts. Even it's not readable if you have 15, because I guess new developers even don't know any of the table numbers. So some of the dinosaurs probably still know that is GL account. So that's how you can work with all those small things, and you can see example here as well. That's even more hard-coded, but there is even more problems with that. First of all, I think someone just put it as a service or quick fix functionality, but left it in the code. So my assumption, still, I don't know why someone did it, so my just good guess is that someone just wanted to fix something. But first of all, if you are doing such small fixes, leave it in the separate application if you really need to do it. That's my advice. And then just uninstall it or just remove it from the application. And the second, make sure, and this is very important for all BC developers, is make sure to have a valid business perspective. What's happening when you will do such code, right? In this case, I need to tell you that someone just messed up with the whole database, and that's a really big problem. That was on the customer database, and see what's happening here. Updating just a currency code with hard-coded value, right, for all the invoices which were not USD, and without any validation, nothing, right? So that could potentially really make a mess for the customer. In fact, that was something which later few developers need to debug all other stuff, why something went like this, and also consultants, why those invoices doesn't match properly. So leaving that in the customer is really bad, but doing it also with the without the business perspective, how the system works, it's not good at all. Especially that was US customer, so they should have USD empty in the currency code, by the way. So see like how we can mess with the things, and that can be really problematic for whole the business. So don't do something like that. Always think what you're doing. Now something which maybe is not like a very bad thing if you will do something like that, but it's nice also to write, and especially with the longer procedures, to put the procedures in all the events and triggers. That's my recommendation. And also don't write very complex procedures. So if you, for example, running through the sales header, and then you're running through the sales lines, you can put what you have in the sales line in one, and modifying the sales line also in one procedure. So don't build like a very complex spaghetti code, however we will call it. Like make the procedures quite simple, and also make, and that's the second example on the below, that we will know what that procedures do, because whenever I do the code review, I in fact will look, okay, on after get record, set things for record. So what does exactly do? That's not the good name for the procedure. It could be much better, I believe. And again, something which I would like to just very quickly show you, because it's not rocket science. So what I'm doing very often, I write a long procedures, but later I have a very nice tool which can for me also change it to procedure. So even if I wrote it, then I can just always refactor it to the smaller chunks of the code. So that's something which you again can find, and there is an extract to procedure from AL code actions, which I will explain in a moment what is it. But you can see that I can just click on it, and then system automatically move the code to the new procedure, and I can just name it. If Copilot would be better, maybe that would make more sense, but I can just write set customer style based on blocked. I hope anyone now can understand what this procedure exactly is doing, right? And this is exactly what this procedure is doing, based on the block, just setting the style. And you can see that I just need 2 clicks to move that code to local procedure. And trust me, there is much better and it works really nice with the long block of text of code, and also putting variables also automatically to that local procedure if I don't use that in another procedure. So give a try. It will really improve readability of your code if you will just do it this way. All right, another one which I would like also mention is don't trust all the automated tools which doing CAL, 2AL, and so on. As you can see here, I have something which someone just did. I don't know how it was done. Someone else told me that maybe it's some automated tool. I don't know, but this is what I heard. But even if hide the code, it's not meant to be like that. So first of all, you can see that in the project, I have a bunch of table extensions with the specific number, and the only one thing which those extension has been doing is adding the caption and modifying the standard caption. You know what happened? Microsoft removed some of the fields from the page, and then I got an errors at the customer who was using that this cannot compile anymore because such field either changed the name or was modified, whatever it happened, was not present. And in fact, this table extension was not needed at all because, as you can see, the caption is in fact not changed. It's exactly like that, the same caption from it. How it was done, no idea. This is what I need to maintain, so I removed 500 extensions, table extensions from the solution, right, to make a code better. And the other example here, in fact, has two things. One is, or even more, one thing is that why you need to do the event subscribers if you don't need to have any code in that. Just remove the subscriber, right? So that's one, because then you're just thinking why someone just commented it. Maybe it shouldn't be commented. That's one thing which I'm thinking right away. The second is what I already mentioned. You can see code unit 5056. I have no clue what is it. I guess this is something about contacts and customer, probably with contacts, but in general also don't use the numbers here because that doesn't give any clue to the users. You can also see event subscription code unit, which also doesn't give any clue what this is all about. And don't use also such comment blocks because it's harder to read the code, especially that if you are not using Visual Studio Code for that, because it will not be recognized, right? So just remember about it. If you don't need a code, just remove the code from the solution. There are tools which will help you, but also which in that case, just not needed code should be just removed. And that's what I mentioned already about the numbers. And here I didn't have an error during the upgrade, but now in version 25, if someone wrote permissions like this, you had an error because it was preventing the update. So table 17 GL entries, right? Instead of writing number 17, it should be said GL entries, and customer was blocked only because of that. And now imagine situation if we will revert a little bit to the back when I was saying about app.json and someone not allowing to download the code. This code was from other partner. If no one had, but even if no one had like a code for that, customer only because of such mistake could be blocked, and company would need to do much more costly re-implementation if no one would be able to download the code only because someone put a permission 17. So even if something working right now, with a refactoring, find what will be the next errors in the future and refactor it. Don't leave it, even if it's not you who wrote it. Just refactor that to have less problems. The next thing which I would like to also mention is about the UI. That's one thing, but also, and very important one, about using the standard approach. So there are few things which you can do, but always please try to use the standard patterns from AL. And this example, in fact, both those examples shows that those code is not following the standard. I hope in the first one you already can see that there is no assisted edit. So something is wrong here, right? So that's one thing, how we can find that something like that should be. I will show you in a second. And the second one is on open page. This is some setup page, I guess, right? The first integration, and there is like local variable, if not get that in, then insert, then comment, then get, then update. Something is wrong here, right? So I mean, it's not needed to be so complex. So so one thing is how you can deal with that things and learn about how you should do things. First thing is, even if you will go to the Explorer and open customer card, you may see how the number field should be handled, right? It's something which we can just learn by copying an example. You can see that we have assisted edit, right? So some of you probably know that records should always have assisted edit, but you also can see that visibility of that field also has some rule. So number field visible, I can just look why and what happening with number set visible. You can see that this is also controlled by some code unit. So when you're developing something, make sure it's working the same way, right? So this will allow you to make the code better, and for that, other developers, consultants will know how it works. You will not need to explain. If I, as a consultant, will look on something like this, especially if it's on app source, I would already see that something wrong, which is something is wrong here. So that's one thing. But the other thing which I wanted to just show you is with the second one, especially this one with the with opening the page, the setup page. It's very simple to just follow the standards, and by standards I mean probably all of you know Waldo. He prepared a snippets, so you can just use the snippet which is called setup page, and you can see that it already have option insert if not exist. This is on the page, so you even don't need to program that. You can just use the standard thing. And if you will go to table setup, it's also have a procedure reset if not get insert end. How simple it was that to not make a wrong code and not make something which maybe potentially is not needed or doesn't need to be this way. So that's one thing. The second, again, to UI, also don't propose to the customer some not standard ways how the system looks like. So I will just give you a real example. That's something which one of the customer had in their database, in the pages, that each field, in fact, was a group. And you know, at some moment when we were adding a new field, we were like, should we follow what is already there, or should we say to the customers that we should change it? And at the end, there was an issue with such solution. So we really need to change it to standard way, because at some moment there Microsoft changed something on the pages, and we had a warning that in the future something will be an error. So, but in general, looks how not standard way it's looking, and also like how more you need to maintain, because each group also need to have own caption and so on. So even you double the cost of the translation, or even making more work to anyone else. If customer wanted something like that, because I cannot say if maybe customer wanted something like this, it's also good to tell the customer that, hey, maybe it's like bad idea, it's better to do it standard, because at some moment you can have a problem. At the end, customer asks us to change it, but in general, don't propose to the customer things that are harder to maintain, right? So that's also will make less messy code. And this one I really found on some app source app, and I will not read exactly what is doing here, but my recommendation always is just don't publish the code on app source if it's not ready. In this error is here, not ready yet, please contact us for further. And you can see that if someone hit that code, a lot of things is happening before. Maybe someone from say line planning something did some commit, then it's even worse, right? And then error at the bottom, and some Danish stuff here. I'm just showing it just that you will know, like if you show the code to app source, you may have it already installed, right? So like please make sure not push such code to app source. If it's not ready, I fully understand. Sometimes we have something like that as well. We just commenting it, but it's good to like make sure. And maybe someone even don't remember that something like that could be. Okay, I want, and I told David that I will finish faster. So let me just only do those 3 last minutes just to give you some general tips for development. Is use snippets. As I showed, it's very easy. Use proper naming. That will just make you a little less messy. Use affixes or namespaces in all places which is needed. I really very often see tables without the namespaces, without the affixes. It at the end, if Microsoft would add such a field, we will have a problem. All of us will have a problem. Use naming convention for files. Waldo extension has a really great thing to handle that. Sort variables, remove unused variables. That will all also keep it easy. Keep variables local if you need them, or global only if you really need. I'm only almost using the local variables in a lot of cases, which automatically show where they are used. Keep procedure short as possible, as I mentioned, right? Keep refining that. Validate fields whenever needed, and the most important, which I always say, developer never should send a code which is not tested. Do the examples, run it by yourself, and check if everything is okay, right? That will give you like a less pushback from the customers or so. There are few Visual Studio codes which can help you with those things. So like Waldo, I use it for snippet, I use it for naming convention for files, and all my developers using exactly the same on all our project. Andrzej AZ extension, it has built functions for sorting, removing vars, changing the cases, which also annoy me a lot with if I see set range in the capital cases, and also get variable names. I almost forget how to write variable names thanks to that tool. It's really great. And AL code actions from David, you already seen it can refactor your procedures and create labels, which is really great as well. And the last one, which is for me, I make mistakes in Polish, I make mistakes in English. code spell checker is a great tool because it can check if your code doesn't have a wrong names and check spelling. So it's really great. And of course, GitHub Copilot. I could not live without GitHub Copilot. I really think it can make a better code and at least think about some things which I forget, like better tooltips, better comments, and so on. So that's where GitHub Copilot helps me a lot, explaining the function, what it's doing, adding some additional lines. I really love to work with that, so I only can recommend it. Also to be less messy. And I have two things really at the end, just two last slides. First of all, to all the developers, please don't copy the code from the internet, right? I know sometimes you think that it's great, something done, but always think what you are copying. Not always that something is written in the best way, especially like one-to-one. Think what you are copying, not only AL, but in general. That's very important in my daily work. It's great examples, but sometimes you need to polish them. And that's saying so. I also want to say to people like me who is sharing the things, I'll sometimes also not following it, but try to, in 99% of cases. If you will find something, please also don't do shortcuts in your code examples, because if people are copying it from your blog, video, whatever it is, then we will see that in the production databases. So please make your examples are very, very well written as well, even better than you would write. That's for me. And that was my last slide. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy. I don't know if we have time for questions and if we have any questions, but David, back to you.
You actually just did dead on time, so we don't have any questions, but we would have stretched. We actually just hit the time call now. I think it was very clear that I don't think I had any questions either. Yeah, I think it was a great presentation. It's something that's like in ground to most of us that have been doing this for years, but this is definitely something that everyone that's getting started needs to focus on. So I'm just going to take back control of the screen, which I should be able to do here, and put this over to here. Once again, everybody, I'd just like to thank Fornab, who really make this possible. It's, this isn't just a case of running a Zoom meeting. It's actually quite complex to do this, to be able to get all this together, manage all the users and everything. And Fornab do a lot for us to get this going. And please help support them. Arthur just says thank you for a great presentation. Not a question, obviously, but yeah, thanks for Fornab, and just keep in mind that the reporting, the stuff they do, and Mikael Nielsen, he wrote the original Navision stuff, so he knows what he's doing. It's some good stuff. The upcoming webinars, some of these are obviously a lot coming up. Please go to areopa.academy. That's the place just to get everything. It's all one click now. It's a really nice, simple website. So thank you, everybody, and thanks to all the people that do it, all the moderators, the rest of us that all help. I used to be the only backup that Luke has, and we now have a whole team, which makes life a lot easier. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Katie, stay on the line. I'm going to stop the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.